Hey y'all, it's Brita for the Happier Attorney, the channel where we talk about flat fees and mindset for attorneys. And today we're going to be talking about what your self-esteem has to do with flat fees, because it actually has everything to do with flat fees. Really. So I've had a couple conversations the last few weeks that have reminded me just how important it is to have some basic level of self-esteem as an attorney and in regard to flat fees. What I see is attorneys, and quite frankly, more women. I run into this more with women than men. I'm not going to get into the whys of that. That is just my observation, where the bottom line is they don't value their work. And when you don't value your work, when you don't think, not just like, oh, I do good work, but when you're not willing to say that that work is actually worth money more than scraps, don't use flat fees. Don't even try it, because it's never going to work, because you are going to continue to undervalue yourself and go backwards. Here's what I mean. And I've been there. I remember when I got my first job, it was in a private firm, and I was making no money, even with deferring student loans. I remember one paycheck, I had an extra $20 for the next 2 weeks, and the next check, I had an extra $40. When I say extra, that meant for clothing for me and my son. That meant for any extras, any school supplies, anything other than groceries, rent, gas, utilities. Okay. So that job didn't last very long, because I was in and I was the only financial support for my son. So I feel like I had a choice. So I was looking for a job within 3 months. And thankfully I got a job in the prosecuting attorney's office, and I got a substantial raise. At the time, it felt like I just won the lottery. And we could breathe a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. Okay, this raise it amounted to about $500 or $600 a month. But at the time, that was huge. And I remember feeling so lucky, not just grateful, but I remember feeling lucky that I had gotten that job. And in some respects, I was lucky that I got that job, but they were also lucky that they hired me, because I did a really good job. And I had insurance. Health insurance, oh my gosh. And I had deferred comp and retirement. So I just felt so lucky. I didn't even dream about asking for a raise. Didn't even contemplate it. And I remember a friend of mine who's still a friend, nearly 30 years later. She had worked there for a shorter time period than I did. But let me tell you, Laura has always valued her work. And I remember one day her talking about getting a raise. And I'm like, what? We didn't get raises? What are you talking about? You got a raise. Yeah, she had gone in and asked for a raise and gotten one. Oh my gosh, we can do that? Holy cow, who knew, right? I still didn't do it. Worst they could have said is no. But you know what? They just said yes to her, right? I didn't even do it. And then I went out on my own. And then it got easier and easier. And especially when I could really see the impact of my work with clients. And when I had done the work and they weren't paying me, that got me going. And then when I changed to flat fees, by that time, I had internally gotten to the point where I knew what my work was worth. I knew this was important stuff. I knew what I could do. And by golly, you need to pay me. And so when I'm talking to people and they're coming up with reason after reason after reason why flat fees won't work, which is nonsense, absolute nonsense. I mean, there's some legitimate things that you're going to have to overcome, and there's some practice, very particular practice areas like, personal injury, that of course it's not going to work. Or if your entire practice is based on getting court approval for your fees, that's going to be a problem. But other than that, all the reasons, they're all nonsense. And when I hear people just continually, well, what about this? And what about this? That's telling me there's more there. And especially when they've just told me they're not tracking their time. Hourly isn't working for them either. And some people don't track their time because it's really hard to do. Our brain doesn't work that way. So there's not tracking your time because it's just, ugh. And then there's not tracking your time because you don't feel like your time's worth tracking. You don't feel like you're worth getting paid. I talked to a gal recently who, I swear, I don't think that she felt like she should get paid anything. It was almost like she wanted to do it for free. That is not a candidate for flat fees. There's nothing, until she sorts that out internally, there is nothing that I can do to help her. I could teach her flat fees until I'm blue in the face. I could set her price for her. If I could make her even say the price and she said it, it still wouldn't work because she doesn't believe it. If she doesn't believe it, nobody else is going to. And there are attorneys who, quite frankly, it seems like they don't think that attorneys should be paid anything. Like it should be free or something. Like everybody deserves free legal services. If that's you, then go work for the state or go work for a nonprofit. But working in a private firm, quite frankly, if that is how you feel, maybe you shouldn't be working there. Because that's not how it works. So I say this because it happens more than you think. It's more pervasive than you think. And so if you are someone who just feels lucky to be an attorney, not gratitude. I'm not talking about gratitude. Gratitude's different. I'm very grateful for being an attorney. I'm grateful for having the happier attorney and creating that. I'm very grateful for my life. Feeling lucky is a different energy. Feeling lucky is like, oh, I'll just take whatever scraps somebody's willing to give me and I'll just feel so lucky to have anything. That's a self-esteem problem, and that's a problem, especially for flat fees. So I would invite you to, do some soul searching maybe. If you're really hesitant about flat fees or you're interested, but it's still, I could never charge that, especially when people get judgmental about it. And this has happened on the Facebook group, when I hear somebody getting emotional about it and very judgmental and almost catty, that's a telltale sign there's a value problem there. When you're attacking another attorney for what they're charging, that's a you issue. That's not a them issue. There's nothing wrong with they're charging, especially a flat rate. If it wasn't reasonable, their client wouldn't have paid it. If their client didn't believe it was reasonable, if their client didn't believe they were going to get more out of it than what they paid, they wouldn't have paid it. That's a value issue with you, that you don't think that you could ever charge that because you don't feel worthy of charging that. And then cloaking it in, well, the fee has to be reasonable. Okay? Flat fees are inherently reasonable. And we can have that debate all day long. But especially when you're getting kind of a visceral reaction, that's an internal issue. And just because you undervalue yourself doesn't mean that other people will, or other people should undervalue themselves. So for those who, and if you're mad right now, if you're arguing with me right now, I would invite you to really do some introspection. What's going on there? What's going on there? Just ask yourself, why am I getting upset by what Brita just said? Maybe she hit a nerve because she was right. Maybe. So if you suspect that you might have some self-esteem issues, especially with money or charging, or if you have I could never charge that kind of visceral reaction, there might be something more there. Okay? Just a thought, just an invitation, just some observations. Have a good day, guys. Take care. Bye.